Welcome to another edition of Eye on the Issues. Today we are talking taxes in the Cowboy State, and we're going to be talking with the Wyoming Taxpayers Association. Ashley Harpstreith is going to tell us what's going on with the money that the state receives in taxes, how it's used, is it used wisely, could it possibly be used better? We might get a little insight in that. Ashley, thanks for joining us. How did you get involved with analyzing how the taxes are used in the state of Wyoming?
Sure. Well, my background is in workforce development, economic development, and then working in private industry, always being some sort of a conduit from private industry through government type channels. And when I moved here 5 years ago, my favorite part of when I did economic development was the advocacy piece, and knew several people that were on the board of Wyoming Taxpayers Association. So I threw my name in the hat and got the job and have been here ever since. So it's a great job. It's super fun. And I'm very passionate about our mission.
And tell us, what specifically is that mission?
Yeah, so since 1937, Wyoming Taxpayers Association has advocated for sound tax policy for a healthy Wyoming economy. And it's important for your listeners and viewers to know that we are not anti-tax, we are not pro-tax, we are just a nonprofit 501c4 corporation think tank with a 501c3 foundation research arm. Our membership is diverse, from large companies to family business, mineral producers to ranchers, corporations to cooperatives, elected officials, and private citizens. So we really serve all the taxpayers, but to be completely transparent, a lot of the taxpayers that really enjoy our work are the ones that have the most skin in the game.
Okay. And so one of the reports you put out is called the Cowboy Family. Tell us from a 10,000 foot standpoint, what is that report?
Sure. So the purpose of this report is to provide a deep dive into the average state taxes the Wyoming citizens pay and the benefit of the services they receive. This is something we've always interfaced with, but obviously more recently with the assessments going up and housing, individual home prices changing, there's a lot of light on, okay, what are we putting in and what are we getting out? And there are a lot of other states that have similar reports, but they just focus on the taxes, where ours is a little different, as it provides transparency on the services provided by the taxes. And it additionally, most importantly to us, it begins to drill down on who else pays for the Wyoming citizens' services. The Wyoming citizen are very fortunate, as we only pay a fraction of the individual services we receive, and have the second lowest effective individual tax burden in the nation of 7.65%. And that's all according to the Tax Foundation.
And that is in and of itself incredible. How is that because of revenues that are coming into the state, because of surpluses? Tell us about that.
What we did to calculate this information, we mapped out a methodology and focused on the most sound data that would give us the most accurate results. And instead of using the median, which is what the State of Economic Analysis has done for a long time, we used the mean of all 23 counties because we wanted to include those outliers in our state. It's just so vastly different from Niobrara, which is, probably the poorest county in our state, to Teton County, which is one of the most wealthy counties in the whole world, into the home prices. And additionally, we use data from the US Census Bureau, US Bureau of Labor Statistics, Tax Foundation, and then numerous of Wyoming state entities. When we were looking at this data and the information I'm about to present, this does not include federal funds. The federal fund tax situation is a whole different debate, which I'd love to get into at another time, but we're just right now talking about state taxes and the individual burden and the services you receive. Additionally, I want to note we had excellent advisors from University of Wyoming Department of Economics, Dr. Liu from Wyoming Economic Analysis Division, and we leveraged the retired director of Department of Revenue, Dan Noble, who sits on our foundation board. And they were just really instrumental in helping us decide on that methodology of the project and helping overcome, any roadblocks we encountered throughout the project. But when we show that slide that goes with the Cowboy Family and you dive into the report, for illustrative purposes, we used a household income of $125,000, and that's assuming both parents worked. And I guess I should back up. This is a family of four, 2 parents, 2 kids.
Okay.
And then we'll talk about how you can make it work for your household because it might be different. So for the mean wage, we used 125,000 with a home valued at 370,000. And within those variables on the main page, you can see the average family of four pays in $4,429.08 and comes back out with $61,263.44 in services. And on that screen, you'll see the 4,000 that they put in, and then the chunk of we're able to pull out the minerals portion, which is almost half. And then the rest is an investment income and other funds that make up the difference. It is important to note that most of the investment income is derived from minerals. Now, the really neat thing about this project is it has an interactive dashboard that will allow the user to analyze in a secure fashion. We don't save any of your data. It's just it's a little tool, little calculator that allows whoever's using it to input their variables and see approximately how many taxes they pay in and the values they receive out. If you're single and have a $10 million house in Teton, you might be upside down a little bit, but pretty much the average Wyoming citizen is going to have like $1 in and gets about $14 in services out.
That sounds incredible. And I'm not sure if you've compared that to other states, but I would imagine that is probably much better than almost every other state, if not every other state.
Yes, and this is using data just in the last couple of years, even with our rising assessments. So you can put in, what your assessor said your house was valued at in the last couple of years. And I'm not degrading the change in assessments and taxes that have gone up, but we just wanted to really explain what those taxes were. The policy around how much is too much, that's a whole different fight. But just knowing where those dollars come from and where they go was the information we wanted to put out and provide transparency on, and helping educate people to understand what property tax does and what it pays for in our state. And I can dive into those services if you have any.
Yeah, why don't you do that, please?
Sure. So local services would be like animal control, cemetery, construction, corrections, economic development, fire departments, general public buildings, highway, street, and alley maintenance, housing and community development, libraries, park, rec, museums, municipal airports, parking facilities, police services, protection inspections, weed and pest services. That list can go on forever. And then at a county level, you have your county officials, such as your treasurer, assessor, sheriff, attorney, planner, surveyor, coroner, commissioners, and other administration. You have your ag departments, which are super important throughout the state, district court, circuit court, drug court, juvenile probation programs, your jail, road and bridge maintenance, election services, health and services, libraries, parks, rec, and museums, fairs, county. So it just goes on. These are a lot of things that we all rely on. We also pay a big chunk of our property tax goes to special districts, which is balloted upon in each special district. And that's like cemetery districts, conservation districts, downtown development authority, fire protection, flood control. I could go on forever, and you can see that report. And then, of course, the state services and healthcare, which healthcare is a huge piece of our funds that the state services go to provide for. Our point is this. We still, even with rising assessments as a individual taxpayer, we definitely reap more than we sow. And if we think that we need to scale back, that's fine. Then we need to look at what are we going to trim from that list of services I just provided, because that's been like the balance. A lot of the entities have said cut, but then when you go to cut, they're like, oh no, don't cut that, or don't cut that. So they have to understand the local services that some of these things cut down. And if they don't want to cut, that's fine. But my members are concerned about a shift in burden because they already pay a majority of the taxes and the services that we receive back in.
And so what would you say is the biggest takeaway from this for the average Wyoming family?
We have a really good deal. And you said you're from out of state. So I would imagine if you did this calculator, there's one in Utah, there's one in Idaho, and they use it opposite, where the individuals, because they have an income tax, and we're fortunate where we just have a severance tax. So they're using it to like lower that income tax. And since we don't have a state income tax, we really rely heavily on that severance tax to pay a lot of the extra things that we like.
And when you say severance tax, is that like a use tax, or explain that?
No, that's a severance tax is when a mineral is severed, and it's a different tax that's on minerals.
Got it. Got it. Interesting. You know, and states like Wyoming, like New Mexico, that have all this money coming in from energy, that's just it's almost like I don't know, kind of like free money, and then it's, you know, the residents get to sit back and just enjoy it because they live where they live.
That's right. So I'm double checking. I think, yeah, severance tax is usually property taxes where it usually lives, but it is its own little category within our state tax structure system.
Right. And so from what your report indicates, is there anything that maybe Wyoming could be doing better, or is it really, are you just crunching the numbers and then people just could take it for what they will?
That's the purpose. This comes from our foundation. We haven't used it in an advocacy space yet. We're just using it to say, hey, these are the numbers you're working in, and this might help you think through some of the challenges we have with residential property tax. And knowing if you shift the burden, it's got to be cut or it's going to shift somewhere else.
Sure, sure. And so where can the average folks in Wyoming go to find this information now? What's your website?
Yep, it's wyotax.org, WYOTAX.org, and there's an interactive dashboard. You just go to the Cowboy Family. It's right up top. It's super easy to find, and the report and all the supporting documents are right with it.
And do you do this on an annual basis?
This is a brand new report we just released during session because that's when it was ready. So now we'll just go into promoting it and hopefully educating the public on how to use it and best understand the challenges that the legislature has to deal with, and understanding the balance of taxes and services.
Sure, sure. Okay, so I need to ask you this question. I ask most folks that I talk to that live in the state of Wyoming. What do you love most about the state of Wyoming?
Oh, I mean, what do you not love about Wyoming? No traffic, open spaces, the best people. It's just a great lifestyle for family and community.
Mm-hmm.
And outdoor rec.
Gotcha. All right. Is there anything else about what you do with the Wyoming Taxpayers Association that I did not ask you about that you want to mention?
Yeah, sure. So not only do we have the Cowboy Family, but we put out 2 other publications a year, and then tons of different reports, about over 30 reports, depending on, you know, what the topic is, where we're trying to educate the legislature and the public on. But the 2 most important ones where your listeners could get educated on is if you go to on wyotax.org, go to publications and reports, and you can see the Wyoming tax summary, and that has all the taxes that are out there, what they yield, where they're distributed, you know, the rate, all the different things on that, and gives a ton of information on what our tax structure looks like. And then the most important publication I think that we put out, and probably the most used, is the property tax book. And that is a really thick book. It cost me about $35 per book to print. So we love pushing it out digitally, but tons of information on what property tax is about, and where it goes, and who's paying those taxes.
Fantastic. Wow. So the bottom line is you are an information provider, really.
That's correct.
Fantastic. Well, Ashley, thank you so much. Hopefully we can do this again. We'll talk about one of your other reports next time, maybe drill down a little bit more about property taxes and go from there. But thank you so much for talking to us.
All right.
And for anybody that wants to learn more about the state of Wyoming, just go to wyliberty.org and sign up for our newsletter. You can find out a lot more about what's happening around the state of Wyoming. Thanks, Ashley.
Thank you.